Okay guys, today we are doing a wax test. Little sample jar here of Primo. It's got a great orange color, orange scent to it. Oh man, it does smell very good, like oranges. We're going to do about half the hood here. I've done a little bit of research, read a couple reviews on other people that have used Primo here. Just to see what their thoughts were and how they thought it was best to do it. One of them that I respect the most, Jim, Dr. Olds, has used Primo and said use a nice micro applicator pad, but then the biggest thing is to use a short nap microfiber to take it off, and to take it off in little chunks. So we're going to try this today. As you can see, I've used it a couple different times already, so I am familiar with it. I have used it, but we're going to do about half the hood, see if we can see any difference, how easy it is to go on, how easy it is to come off, and do some of that. Obviously, we can always do wax comparisons all day long, but you know, we'll do this one straight up and see what we have. Now, the one thing I noticed first is when you run your finger over it, and I don't know if we can see that, it looks and it feels gritty. So I'm not real sure what that's all about. Usually waxes are real creamy and smooth, but this stuff is a little gritty. So it's not a problem. Run your finger around it and it softens up and it coats my finger real nice, no problems. So I'm just going to take my applicator, a little bit there. I mean, that was just a little turn, and we're just going to see how far it spreads and go from there. As always, the key is to apply it as thin as humanly possible. Being a sealant guy, I do like waxes, paste waxes, but usually I lean towards the synthetic polymer infused waxes, like say Fusion or Blackfire Midnight Sun. So far, this stuff is going on very well. Very thin. And just from that original little prime, it's still spreading out. Now, I'm a little over the top. I will apply it in little circles, and then I'll come back and I'll do, you know, back and forth the way that the wind blows, just to kind of get full and even coverage. But so far, just off of that one tiny little prime of the pad, I have now done half the hood. You can see a little bit of tint still there. Not a big deal. I'm sure it'll wash out. But, I mean, that was really easy, really straightforward, simple to do. And I've used this a couple of times, and this is just a little sample jar. It's not the big square jar that it's normally sold in. And I really haven't hardly touched the surface. Used a little bit, but not a ton. So, I mean, this little jar will do a number of vehicles. If you can continue to spread it that thin, I would anticipate somewhere, I don't know, 5, 10 maybe, maybe even 10 vehicles, and I don't see why you shouldn't be able to get 10 vehicles out of it. Okay, while we've got it here, I'm just going to see if we can do anything to show the difference. You can see right here, it's not perfect, but there is a line. It's definitely overcast today, so it's not a great deal, but hey, I want to do this, I want to see it. It's very oily, you know, I can run my finger across it and it just smears. So we're gonna let this sit. I'm gonna let it sit for at least 5, maybe even 10 minutes, and we'll come back and then go from there. Okay, it's been a little over 5 minutes, closer to 10 really, and as you can see, it still just smears. One of the things that I know about this wax is it's very oily, and the oils can stay there for quite a while. I will give it another 5 minutes. We'll wait a full 15 and then we'll come back and do it basically like I had gone around and buffed and applied wax to the entire car, and then we'll come back like I would then come back through and start to buff it off. So we'll go from there. Alright, we got a little sidetracked. It's been more like a half hour, a little over a half hour. The wax is still oily. There is a haze, but it's not hazed in the way I normally would get a wax. And honestly, I haven't seen Primo haze that way yet. It seems to stay oily for me, and you just have to buff it off. Now, it is very overcast today, which is why I'm doing this outside. It's breezy. I just didn't want to, this way I can kind of show what's going on. Pack Check Silver Surfer towel, just the really flat nap, is perfect for something like this. And honestly, Primo is buffing off decently right now, just doing it this way, taking small chunks, rotate the towel, the one thing that I have seen from my past use of Primo is the fact that because it is so oily, it really seems to attract wax and such the first day or two. Now, the top layer came off nice, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you this. It is kind of hard to see. It's still there. It's kind of a smeary mess. The paint looks good. It's got great depth, but you can definitely tell that the oils and such are still there because, oh, let's get it. There we go. Let's focus in again. So either I need to let it sit longer and it truly needs to haze, or this is just one of the aspects of Primo. Now, I gotta be honest, most of the waxes I use don't require me to come back and do a second buff to get it right. So, that could be, is kind of a downfall, shortcoming of Primo here. Doesn't make it a bad wax, just is one of the things that you really have to look out for. I would say that realistically, because of the extra buffing, I wouldn't necessarily want to use Primo on anything other than fairly hard clear coat that doesn't scratch or mar well. You know, it's really pretty tough. Mostly because all this extra buffing, and it's taking some pressure to get it. All the extra buffing, if you have soft clear coat, will cause some marring. Now, obviously, it's overcast. You're not really going to be able to see much difference. So you're going to have to take my word for it as to what I see and what's going on. I'll start by saying that Primo here, really? It looks good. It's very tacky. It's not slick. I mean, it's definitely not slick like a sealant, and some of the other waxes that are sealant infused, let's say, are slicker. But it has good depth. I mean, it really, because of all the oils, it makes it pool. I mean, it makes the paint look like a deep black pool. So that's very cool. I mean, so if you've got a show car, something that you really want to show off at your baby, at your garaged baby, this may be something that you'd want to consider. I don't know. Now you have like the Blackfire Midnight Sun, Blackfire Black Ice, both of which I have used, both of which look amazing and give you that show car quality as well. But they're much easier to use. They don't require the extra buff, and they don't seem to be quite as much of a dust magnet as I have seen in my other tests and my other uses. I mean, I have been testing Primo here side by side with a couple other things just to see how it looks, how it acts, what my options are. So right now that's what we got. But I mean, other than just looking at it, I mean, it leaves a nice finish. It does what it's supposed to do. It's just a little bit harder to use than some of these other waxes. It's a little bit harder to, you got to make sure you put it on super thin, and you got to make sure that you use a real short nap towel and take tiny little chunks. And at least from my experience, it takes at least two buff, a two-step buff. It takes a first buff to get the top section or the top of it, and then it takes a secondary buffing to come back through and get the rest that it leaves behind, usually before, after the fact.